I've got my essay written, and I've been working on it.
I pledge
All right, thank you, everybody. We are back out of executive session. And the next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I sure do miss our kids being here, say that in person. Okay, let's see, next item on the agenda after Pledge of Allegiance is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Agenda. I'm sorry. Thank you. Mr. President, I move that the board approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, I think I would go with Dr. Schumacher for this one as a second. Any discussion? If not, Ms. Lister, we could have the vote.
Vote is open.
All right, thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is what school highlights traditionally. Dr. Anderson, do you want to take over?
He's going to come up and help me with these awards. And I'm going to move this up if it doesn't throw you off too much, just to have a little space here. All right, so we have our next highlights are all about them. And with today, as they come up, many of you may not have met some of the principals. As you can see their personality coming out and just how they show up, so which is great. And so with that, as they come up, first of all of these principals that are here before you, or most of them, they're transitioning into new opportunities in their career, or they're moving, or they're getting married, or any of those things. And so we're honoring them tonight for the service, the commitment, the dedication that they've had to Topeka Public Schools. So as I call them up, they'll, as we get to our very first person, we will turn over the mic to them to share a little bit about maybe what their excitement was and whatever you want to share so that the board gets to know you. And then we ask for them to stay just a few minutes right after all those are done so that we can take a picture with the board with each of our administrators. So we're going to go to the very next one. We will say Dr. Dadash was with us for 1 year, and Dr. Dadash is not here this evening. He is moving to, well, he lives in Olathe, so his child is going to kindergarten. So he has taken an assistant principal position in Olathe where he can be closer to his family. We're excited for him. As we move on to our next awardee, we're going to ask to come up last year. Miss Frederick, who moved to Wichita, she'll tell you her story. She's going to come up because this has been a family affair and she has brought part of the family with her. She drove 4 to 6 hours just to be here with you tonight. We're going to start off with just, let's give Miss Frederick an applause. Turn it over to you, then I'll
Dr. Anderson, Board of Education, community members. My name is Mrs. Frederick. I've actually been with the district for, I think actually 10 years, but I'm adding a year because I was a student teacher at Whitson too. So I'm counting that as one of my years. I have been a student teacher. I taught at Eisenhower. I was a dean of students and assistant principal at State Street. I was a principal at Loman Hill Elementary when we started the early college prep academy. And then my husband, darn it, took a job in Wichita. He's the vice president of United Way there. I actually love Topeka Public Schools so much that we spent the first year of our marriage apart so I could finish at Loman Hill. I just couldn't leave just yet. And then I went to Dr. Anderson and said, I'm pregnant, I'm gonna have a baby, I'm gonna need to be with my husband now. And I fully thought that she would say, okay, I'm gonna need a letter of resignation. And I said, hey, if I start an elementary virtual school for you, will you let me run it from Wichita? And let me tell you, no superintendent in this country would have said yes, except for Dr. Anderson. So I've been running virtual school remotely from Wichita. And let me tell you, I gotta leave now because if I start one more program for this district, if I stay, I'm gonna have to start something else. So I'm so passionate about Topeka Public Schools. This has been my family. I can easily sum up 10 years with this district in one sentence. Working for Topeka Public Schools has been the best years of my life.
Staff and parents in Topeka Public Schools with great appreciation.
Baby and Mrs. Sharp. Board. And I guess I'll just stay right on over here. In fact, our next administrator is, and let me look at the, now, and we should say that there was a glitch at the awards company. So that some of these say a different title, although Dr. Morell's is accurate. Some of them say associate principal. We know that they're making new ones and we'll be shipping that out, but you'll keep the one that we gave you, and then you'll get the second one in the mail on Monday. With that, Dr. Morell, can you come on up? So Dr. Morell, we were getting ready to open up TCALC, and we said, there's no way in the world we're going to find someone with 20 years of experience. And then Dr. Morell surfaced, and he is involved in everything from CAPS to all kinds of things that has really allowed for TCALC to build. With that, Dr. Morell apparently has a lake house, and his plans after retirement includes that. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Morell to share about how many years of experience and then what your plans are moving forward.
Well, thank you, Dr. Anderson, members of the board. I have to tell you, this 4 years at TCALC has been amazing. Really enjoyed it, especially just starting at the beginning when it first opened up, and then seeing the growth from not only the students and the staff, but seeing the community come together and support us in terms of internships and opportunities for the students, and that just continues to get better and better. But I came here with a lot of years of experience, both in police work and in teaching, both at the secondary and post-secondary level. So with all of those experiences, this has really been the cap for my career. But I have to say that I'm not quite finished, because I know that I will be doing some consulting for career academies, as well as spending some time in Lake St. Louis. So again, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it.
I haven't asked if you wanted to ask questions, but if you do, once they all sit down, you can direct it to whomever. We're going to just move right on along. And then we have a special award that's an academic award tonight. So we're going to continue on with our next awardee. Our next awardee, as we go to the very next one, is Dr. Sawyer. Miss Sharp uses this term, the hostess with the mostest, and she applies it. She used to apply it to Dr. Gordon. He is certainly that in every way. Theatrical, musical, has put on musical plays, has really shown what a signature school can be. I remember when he applied, and his mom lives here in this area. And so I love that I know everybody's story. And at the time, his mother had some health issues, and he was wondering, was he going to find a place? And it was almost like the perfect connection at the perfect time, as you were in Denver, I think, at the time. And so Dr. Sawyer, over the years he's been here, I believe, Ms. Bowley, you kept commenting on the Facebook post where he took board games to homes and played board games during the pandemic, and just the creativity beyond what you can imagine. And he's going to be closer to his mom on the Missouri side. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sawyer. Let's give him a hand.
So my name is Dr. Sawyer. I have been the principal at State Street for 3 years now. I was in Colorado previously for 5 years, born and raised in Kansas City, moved to Colorado. As Dr. Anderson had stated, during my last year in Colorado, my mom and I both actually developed cancer at the same time. And she lived in Kansas City. So it was my initiative to get back towards Kansas City in order to be closer to her, as it was a quick little reminder that life is sometimes short. And you have to take the bull by its horns and really make the most of it while you have it. I didn't make a promise to myself, though, that I wasn't going to commit to any district or any school that would take me, but rather a school that I felt was a good fit. And so when I happened to see State Street, that was a performing arts elementary school with my performing arts background, Dr. Anderson, who is an advocate for Ron Clark, which I got to go and meet, as well as Eureka Math, which may sound nerdy, but that's one thing that I really enjoyed and wanted to go to. Within those 3 pieces, I had decided to apply for State Street. Been here for 3 years. My mother does live with me currently, and will be moving with me as well, as she developed a 3rd cancer and is in now remission. So I'm continuing to take care of her, but it has been quite the journey. I've been very blessed to be here the last 3 years. We kind of joke around. My first year, COVID hit toward the end of it. So I would say to all my haters that thought the world was going to shut down if I became principal, they were kind of right. But we persevered and got through it. And having the final moments with my staff just to kind of reflect on the 3 years we've been together, and knowing that no school environment was easy during those 3 years, but the fact that we made it and have some great stories that conquer some others that we've heard from other districts and other teachers is really something to celebrate. So I do appreciate the board for giving me this opportunity, Dr. Anderson for advocating and bringing me on board and allowing me to work my magic. Thank you guys so much.
Ms. Sharp, you want to come on up? I remember when we were in COVID and he was taking care of Mama Sawyer, and I went to go find your house is all in this subdivision that's extremely hard to get to. And I was dropping stuff off at his house. And at that moment, just knowing that you've become part of a family, and whatever happens next year and the year after, once part of Topeka's family, you remain part of Topeka's family. So we feel blessed that we could be here during that transition time. And we're excited about what you're going to do at your next school. I'll turn it over to Ms. Sharp. Upstage you, so I didn't do the yellow. All right, our next administrator. Oh my goodness, I remember when Dr. Hughes was in Arizona. Let's give out Dr. Hughes a hand as she comes to the microphone. And again, knowing everybody's story and spending enough time with them to really know what makes them tick. Dr. Hughes is quite the special lady. During the course of the principalship, in addition to moving from Arizona, having been a principal in St. Louis, Arizona, and then coming to Topeka, she had a bout with cancer, and she is the first principal that I know that went to treatment, and to get her mind off of the treatment, she wanted her principal family to be with her. So we literally on principal meeting days joined her in the treatment room, and you talk about a family. I don't know where that would happen anywhere else. I said, y'all, we're having chemo with this, our chemo. We're having chemo with Dr. Hughes, and which she did beat, and she is now healthy and well, and she will share the rest of her story. Dr. Hughes, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. You got tears coming in my eyes. Respectfully, board members, and just all of Topeka Public Schools, who definitely has made my journey in education. I've been in it now for 23 years. In the last 4 years, I've been with Topeka Public Schools. And I must say, hands down, this is a district where they say family orientated. Topeka Public Schools is definitely family orientated. I did, as Dr. Anderson described, go through a cancer battle right there in his chair. And Dr. Anderson would call and check on me. Dr. Hughes, you sure you okay? You sure? And I'm like, Dr. Anderson, leave me alone. I am okay. These meetings got to be made. We got to get this stuff going. I got kids. And she was like, okay, just right there to support me along the way. HBC, of course, was right there to support me along the way. And I say all of that. And my colleagues here just Topeka Public Schools as a whole. I made it through, but I could not have done it clearly without God first, and definitely without the support of every last person in this district that I call amazing Topeka Public Schools. It is a bittersweet moment to leave because I do love it here. And of course, I love HPC, but I also like my new man too, you all. I'm just saying, okay? So having the opportunity to move to a district closer to home gets me home in 27 minutes versus an hour. And I don't have to hear, "Well, you're on your way, you're on your way" anymore, because I can get home in 27 minutes without feeling rushed. So just know that Dr. Anderson and everyone, the board, every member of Topeka Public Schools, you all will always carry a very special place in my heart. And again, just thank you. Thank you for making my educational journey the most amazing one that it could have been.
All right, Ms. Sharp.
In recognition of your exemplary years of service and commitment to the students, staff, and parents in Topeka Public Schools. And I think she was giving Dr. Gordon a run for her money with the hostess, with the hostess.
All right, and Mr. Kathy. Now, Mr. Kathy may get emotional on us. Oh my goodness. He is the kindest, most sensitive man in terms of just loving on people. He became a principal in training as Mr. Dick was there. And I said, tell me about this young man here. He has some leadership. And then we announced to the staff he was a principal in training, knew that he would move into that role. I absolutely love all of my principals, but I particularly, and he knows this, love on him. Anytime I needed something, no disrespect to Dr. Dash, but I called Mr. Kathy. Anytime, it could be, you know, what door is open or unlocked, or just, what do you think about this? I need your ideas. So with that, Mr. Kathy, as he prepares to follow family to Wichita, or way out, a little bit outside of Wichita, he'll tell you the rest of his story about how long he's been here. But he's one special man. You are absolutely incredible. And it has been a privilege to get the chance to work with you.
Thank you. I've been in Topeka Public Schools for, I was wrong. If I count my student teaching year, 18 years. I took it. My student taught. I left the district for 6 years when I taught at a senior high school. I came back, taught at Chase Middle School for a semester. Transferred to Topeka High, taught there for 3.5 years. And I was at Highland Park for 3 years as an assistant principal and athletic director, and I've been at Topeka West for the last 10 years. As associate principal in training. I spent a year as interim principal and then going back to associate principal. I'm going to be moving down to Mulvane to be with my daughter.
He might need to stop there because he said, you know, I'm a crier. I said, I know. And he told me about a little bit more than half a year ago, okay, if my daughter moves to Mulvane, you know, I'm going to be moving. Got it. Because we're family. And hopefully daughter moves back here when she graduates and goes to college and all of that, because it has just been a joy to have you. All right. So come. Are there any questions from the board for any of our outgoing principals before we move into our next academic award?
No, Ms. Bowie.
And you may need to tell which principal you're talking to?
Dr. Sawyer. He was the man that taught me how to make myself into an avatar. Which was quite fun, trying to find something that looked like me. And he developed quite an avatar for me. So my question is, in my Pokemon or whatever card you called it, did it ever trade?
Yes.
Yes. So what Ms. Boley is referring to, we had reflected on our Starbucks system, which is students can earn Starbucks for being, following the star code. And we noticed that some of our 3rd through 5th graders were not buying into the system anymore. And so I'd asked them what they wanted. And they said Pokemon cards. And I wasn't going to buy Pokemon cards with our title funds. And so I did create PokeStar cards, which is a Pokemon card of all of our staff members that our students could collect. And I did get Ms. Boley's avatar, but we never did get around to that final round of making those. So in the making, I know it would have been flying off the shelves, but that was a great project that our kids really enjoyed. And even some of our parents have come and asked for all of them because they were collecting them themselves. So thank you guys for allowing that creativity.
Well, he said that I would become, look very cool because I have my own avatar, and he was correct. He predicted my future. So we will miss you. And I wasn't able to make it, but seeing the ballet at your school, I think was your last performance, big performance. And I just love that idea. And I love the pictures of the excitement. So we'll miss all your creative ideas, and we appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
And I just wanted to say that I appreciate and want to thank you all for your work in TPS. In my experience in visiting lots of schools, I mean, principals, there's a certain caliber of that it takes to be a principal, and all of the pressures that come along with that. And you all have excelled in that role, and I'm truly appreciative of the work that you do day in and day out. So thank you all very much. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Mr. Munoz said. Your work is not easy, and it's very, very greatly appreciated. And I just wish you all the best on your next ventures at a lake house, or with your new man in Olathe, and your new school in Missouri. And okay, my question is for Mr. Kathy. Okay, so he knows, he's been my go-to guy for all things sports. I don't have sports brain, and I'm getting there because now, I have a high school kid who does sports. So he would always just respond to me, so patient. And I'm like, wait, what's a seed again? I don't get it. Wait, what? What is it? What's heat here? A heat? Anyway, I just thank you for always calling me right back with us, answering me and being patient with me. And even at graduation, I had a student come up to me saying, where do I get my diploma? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, but I know who to call. And he picked up the phone immediately, stayed with me on the phone until I was able to guide that student where she needed to be. And he's just that kind of guy. And so what's the lucky school that gets you next? Well, congratulations. And yeah, we hope you come back. We hope you all come back, except when you're retired at the lake house. Yes.
Other questions or comments? If not, we'll transition over to photos. Is that right?
Actually, we have another award.
Okay.
So we, and our final award for this evening is an academic award. So our principals who improved in achievement and outscored the state, they were given a plaque acknowledging that performance. This year, we did have one school in the district, and this is pretty remarkable because it's after the pandemic, that increased in every content area. And so most either increased in math or ELA and science, but to increase in all content areas was amazing. The other thing is this is the largest increase they've had in both areas that I know. So we're going to ask the Meadows staff family to come on up, Mrs. Nicole Johnson and Mrs. Valdivia. Let's give them an applause.
Asked for an award that was different than most awards, and it says, recognizes, Topeka Public School recognizes Meadows Elementary, Nicole Johnson, principal, Erica Valdivia, assistant principal, for improving in ELA and math on the CAP testing during the pandemic. About 82%.
Thank you very much. So tell us about yourselves first off, and tell us about Meadows to start off with.
Okay, well, I've been in Topeka Public Schools for, if I count my student teaching year, 25 years. I just finished 24 as a full-time employee. And I've been at the middle school level, at the elementary level, and I've been at Meadows for 12 years. When I moved there, they were just placed on improvement. So I'm really proud to say that after about 5 years, we came off of improvement and have been able to stay off that entire time. And then we got very, very lucky. And Miss Valdivia was one of our former teachers who went off and gained some experience other places. And then 3 years ago, we brought her back.
Yes, I began my career at Meadows, taught there for many years, and Miss Johnson came on as principal of our building while I was there. And I left to gain some experience in some other areas, and the opportunity came for an assistant at Meadows. And to learn under the tutelage of her was a no-brainer. And I'm really excited of the initiatives that we've begun together, the things that I've gained, the experience I've gained, and that I've learned from her that I can hopefully take on to another building of my own someday is exciting to think about. And I'm very grateful for Ms. Johnson for all that she's done, and Dr. Anderson, of course, for granting me the opportunity to be able to learn from her.
Questions for these two of this, Dr. Schumacher?
So I'm a bit of a homer as a Meadows parent. I think the Schumachers are probably the secret sauce, but no.
No, it's the assistant principal.
Yeah, so I think that's what we always ask is kind of what's the secret to the success that you guys have seen in a hard time for everybody everywhere.
Well, it's without a doubt our dedicated staff. And that goes across beyond teachers. It goes through to your secretaries, to your lunch service staff, your custodians, our paraprofessionals. There's just nobody in that building that is not working and pulling to make sure every kid has every need met. And as you can probably guess, with that free and reduced percentage, our needs are pretty great. We also have the highest mobility rate in Topeka Public Schools. We are above all the high schools, all the middle schools. So our population is very transient. And so it takes a very dedicated group of people to wrap services around every kid as they come and go. So it's that dedication and the unwillingness to let anything slide that our staff bring to the table. They are relentless and they will find a way. Doesn't matter what it is. And if we have to go out and fundraise, or we need to pull in one of our partners, which we have many amazing community partners, they come through for us every single time. So I really think it's that, and then the wonderful enrichment opportunities that we've been able to provide in the last few years that have really kind of boosted us. And I think that makes, the biggest impact. We also have a consistent staff, so we don't experience a lot of turnover. And that gives us an opportunity to keep momentum moving.
we don't restart every year with starting over training. And so having that continuity makes such a difference, that we have veterans in place that are guiding our younger teachers, and then our younger teachers are stepping up to that high expectation of the veterans. So it's a really amazing place to be. And our job is to be the biggest cheerleaders that we can be. We hopefully do a good job of that, but we have amazing people. I brought my husband, Ryan Johnson. He is my sport teammate. Go team. And this amazing little girl's Miss Valdivia.
Other question, Ms. Bowley.
So what do you think you have done at Meadows that possibly our other schools haven't done and could maybe be replicated? What has changed? You're using the same curriculum that everybody's using. You're using the same basic schedule. So what do you think you're doing different that's creating such success for your building?
You know, I think everybody works incredibly hard in this district. So to think that we're above anybody, I wouldn't say that. But I will say that I've been consistent and been there 12 years. So that helps. And that leadership that can see us through tough times and bring on assistant principals and get them on board with the direction we're going, I think that makes a big difference. But above all, we're family, and we take care of our staff the way we want them to take care of our kids. And so our staff has bought into that. And so when there's one of us that's struggling, we're all going to be right there to support the adults, just the same way we would the kids. And I'm sure that's not anything more unique than any other school, but we're relentless about it. And that is the term I would use about everything we do. We're relentless and we do not give up. It's a push, and we've had some tough years. Our scores have not always been great. It's been a struggle. As a matter of fact, there's a panic moment in December. Dr. Kip will tell you, and Dr. McDonald would second it. There were some panicky moments, but we're relentless, and we fought through those things. I'm talking too much. Your turn. Your turn.
To echo off that, I think that an environment has been created at Meadows where our staff trust us, our families trust us, and our students trust us. And when we have to do things that are new, that are different, that are scary, it's a lot easier to do those things when you're surrounded by people you trust. And I think that that's been a big part of it as well. Nobody feels like that they're doing it alone. We all are doing it together.
Mr. Tatum.
Well, ladies, I absolutely want to thank you for all of your dedication, for your tenacity, and the heart that you put into the work that you do, and you model that. And I think that's probably got to be some of the secret to your success is modeling the kind of professionalism and the type of compassion that drives both of you. And I've known you both for a very long time. And I think, to piggyback off of Dr. Schumacher, I think the Tatum kids are part of the recipe of success, because Ms. Johnson, you had several of my kids as a principal. Ms. Valdivia, you've actually taught one or two of mine when they were very small. So I just wanted to say thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. We see you. It's very much appreciated, and we're here to help support your success.
Any other questions? Well, let's just give them a round of applause.
That is our last award for this evening. With that, we're gonna, when we see Gabriel is restless, may start with Gabriel, and so as we start with him, we'll ask each of our staff members to come on up. Unless with all of our principals that are leaving, we can perhaps do one picture with all of them to reflect the family that we are. So board members, if you can come for right in the middle, and then Mrs. Johnson and Miss Valdivia, you'll get the photo with the full board.
right after the departing principals finish their photo. Departing principals, that doesn't sound right. Amazing principals, come on up. All right, and then now Miss John with you. Okay.
All right, we're going to go ahead and so great to recognize some amazing individuals in our district, but we're going to go ahead and move on to the next part of our agenda. Dr. Anderson, anything else under school highlights? Okay. All right. Moving on to the next item is public communication. Ms. Lister, do we have any public communication for today? Okay, so go ahead, Ms. Lister.
All right, the first one is from Bailey Zhang, Director, Office of International Programs at Washburn University. And this, dear USD 501 Board, as a lifelong language teacher, international educator, and parent of a former USD 501 student, I am writing to enthusiastically support the proposal of Mandarin Chinese to be included in the district curriculum. Mandarin Chinese is spoken by over 1.4 billion people in China and tens of millions more outside China. China has the second largest economy in the world now and will likely overtake the US as the largest economy by 2030, according to several reports. It is time to increase the effort and recognize the growing importance of US-China relations and to prepare a new generation of US citizens to engage with China through commerce and culture. This view is widely shared by not just educators, but also by our business and political leaders.
We're looking at this, promoting Chinese teaching and learning, as a lifelong effort to ensure we have leaders who understand China and can help manage what we believe is the most important bilateral relationship in the world, said Carola McGiffert, CEO of BGR Group, the Washington-based Government Relations Services Foundation. If our countries, US and China, are going to do more together around the world than speaking each other's language, truly understanding each other is a good place to start, Obama said during a joint news conference with the Chinese president, noting that 2 of then Vice President Joe Biden's grandchildren were studying Mandarin. In this context, Chinese teaching and learning is indeed spreading rapidly across the US. According to a PBS report, the number of elementary age students learning Mandarin in the United States is on the sharp rise. Roughly 10 Mandarin dual language programs existed in the United States before 2009. That number had swelled to nearly 300 by last fall, one of which is in our backyard, the Blue Valley School District. It is time that our district stepped up the effort and take a strategic look at offering Mandarin Chinese in our schools. Please let me know if I can be of any assistance in this process.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lister. Next, we have a second individual addressing the board, which is Mr. Gibson. Is that right? Okay. Mr. Gibson, you've heard us before, but I'll read it again just as a precursor. Please come forward and state your name and address for the board. You have 3 minutes to address the board. We ask that your comments and remarks to the board be respectful. If you should have a complaint against a specific employee, we ask that you submit your written complaint to the superintendent. If the complaint is against the superintendent, please address your written complaint to either me as board president or to the clerk of the board. Thank you, and you have 3 minutes.
Jeremy Gibson, 928 Southwest Fraser Avenue. I'm speaking before you today concerning the International Baccalaureate Program interest as it currently stands and discussions the board has had on the matter as of recent. As I don't have much time, I have to give a lengthy analysis of the program and little's been publicly shared. I will give brief synopsis of general historical considerations in 501, as well as some practical analysis. Number one, the exploration of the IB program in 501 is not new. Early in my career in 501, we looked at the IB program and AP. I do believe this is around 2005, 2008. It was at that time we determined the AP program was the best fit for Topeka High. If my memory serves me correctly, that was a springboard for adding AP classes at Topeka West and Highland Park. Number two, with adding AP program, it steered 501 into adding AVID, which many of our schools have. Number three, we currently have a working relationship with Washburn University and the creation of dual credit for many, if not all AP courses. This means a student can enroll and receive college credit for a course without taking the AP exam. Yes, there are some students who desire the challenge with the AP exam, and there are others who just don't feel that's necessary. Four, the end result of the IB is the diploma program. To receive this diploma, must take a certain amount of IB classes and accumulate a certain amount of points to receive the distinction. Many colleges will grant college credits upon the completion of the program. This potentially kills the desire to be involved in extracurricular activities or academic clubs. Who has time for softball or debate or band when you're trying to meet the requirements of the IB program? Number five, I've yet to hear anything at this juncture concerning the career-related program. And in fact, I have not heard of such a program until researching. If we were to fully embrace the IB system, would this be an option? And if so, would it compete or complement our current TCALC system? And if so, how? I do take exception with what felt like a lack of information to giving something a shot, and if it doesn't necessarily work, we can just scrap it. Is my philosophy that there's something that we want to see happen, we study it, its implications, including surveying the parents, students, teachers, community. We'll build focus groups to meet with school districts about the successes and pitfalls of such a program. We critically ask ourselves, why is a district the size of Wichita, the largest district in the state, have one IB school versus Shawnee Mission, which has 3? And why does KCK only have IB program at the magnet? Finally, the discussions of the IB PYP program at either Scott or McClure. This was an interesting conversation on many fronts. The first question I had was, where could we see this program in action? I've yet to find an IB school, elementary school close by.
Sir, time, Mr. Gibson, time.
You want to finish or continue?
Can you finish in 10 seconds? Rep?
I can. It says, in my mind, as stewards of taxpayer dollars, these are the kind of issues that should be addressed before voting on its implementation or exploration. If the decision must be made today, I implore you to vote it down, as there is minimal information publicly provided on the issue. Their decision would be to create a task force to explore the issue, put it in a plan of action, give public approval, interest, and then move the vote forward. As it stands currently,
Thank you
I
very
would stop.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, and so that is the end of public communication. Next, we have disposition of business by consent. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign the special projects and purchase contracts for and on behalf of our board.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. Is there a second? Ms. Stewart Campbell, any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move for a vote. Ms. Lister. Thank you very much. Next item on consent on our agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Anderson.
All right, so, and I'm just gonna stand here just for the purpose of live streaming. It's easier to see from this space as opposed to the team trying to get the corners. And so we have two principals here this evening. We're gonna start off. You asked about hearing from teachers and other administrators. Dr. Kelty's on summer break, as are many. And so as you may recall, for those that may not have heard the last meeting, the school board members went to the National School Board Association, heard about IB, came back. As Mrs. Wallace has shared, it's been studied by DCAC. It has been looked at multiple times over the years, and that led to Dr. Kelty, who the board members heard, to come and talk about IB. And he has since talked about just IB for all. And so we'll start off with kind of looking at the video. So you do hear from a teacher or administrator in the video. He sent several video clips. And then I'll turn it over to the to administrators. I will tell you our recommendation should the board want to proceed with IB. Since this was brought to us as we've looked at it, certainly it can be promising in many ways, and I'll share how it can be promising from what was shared, and then I'll share our recommendation, and then I'll turn it over to the principals for you to hear directly from them. We're going to start with this 2-minute clip.
It doesn't matter if you are a struggling learner or if you're a high achiever, there's a place for you.
It's incredibly inspiring. Our International Baccalaureate Primary Years program, aka the IB-PYP, is all about preparing our students to become 21st century learners.
Sierra Elementary is part of the International Baccalaureate. There's nearly 5,000 schools worldwide. And within this area, we're actually one of the first primary years programs affiliated with the IB.
Our PYP program aims to develop inquiring, knowledgeable, and caring young people to help create a better and more peaceful world through intercultural understanding and respect.
One of the real perks of living in South Placer County is all the schools here are amazing. What makes Sierra Elementary program? And it's all centered around something called the learner profile.
So the Learn Profile is a set of 10 attributes that are basically characteristics that you own for life.
They're growing in their confidence. They're growing in their knowledge of the world around them. How to be an inquirer, how to be a thinker, how to be caring.
social skills, communication skills, self-management, thinking skills, research.
And it's the soft skills that are sometimes a little bit harder to tangibly teach in a public education environment, but they are taught very well here at Sierra.
We're an inquiry-based program, and when they get to ask the questions and when they see that their questions are valid, it's pretty powerful.
There's always a lot of extra classes if you ever need help with a subject, and they're always making sure to be as nice as possible.
Enrolling your student in Sierra Elementary in the Rockland Unified School District ensures that your student will have the learning profile attributes that are critical for success in the 21st century world that we live in.
We have 4 students who've come to Sierra Elementary, and we just can't be thankful enough for the foundation that Sierra Elementary laid for our children, and we're already seeing those successes applied to what's coming next for them.
Question, what does this look like at the elementary? Because you've heard of IB at the high school. We've shared, I think the board shared that Topeka West, who gave a survey to their staff, over 70% were on board with looking at International Baccalaureate. We believe that the staff has to be on board in order to have any program be successful. The staff at Topeka High was not in favor of adding IB. All IB schools that we've looked at the high school level have AP, IB, and many other courses that are have various acronyms. And so with that in mind, I'll just speak to a couple of pieces that we've learned over this study. This is really an inquiry-based system, teaching young people how to think. So there aren't a set of books and materials that are prescribed. Therefore, it does not conflict with current programming. It does require a language. So naturally, Scott Dual Language already has a language. So we didn't need to explore what's the other language for Scott. Dr. Mejia will talk about what she's learned since your last meeting, and then we'll answer some questions. The other piece that we also learned with IB is that this whole year is really a year of study and learning and training. And so the training for school leaders would be somewhere around September, unless they want to go in July, but most would likely go in September and October. And then it's really studying and learning with the whole staff. So it's, and then potentially if we are approved, it would not be until 2023. We are required to provide staff development. So we believe this is good staff development, regardless whether you were in IB or not. So this staff development would likely be something that we embrace as we really embrace college and career readiness. College prep was suggested as potentially a middle school spot. You do have to have the full scope of courses. In college prep students in middle school, they primarily focus on math, and in the last year focused on computer science. So they wouldn't qualify in that formal space, and maybe in future years they might. So really the elementary, which is teaching critical thinking skills. And again, the principals can talk about that. And then the high school would be Topeka West. The 2 schools that we picked would be one on the west side and one on the east side. McClure, which Dr. Artser is here today to talk about her survey to her parents about the language choice and why she is interested in exploring this. And then Scott Dual Language. If you were to proceed and wanted administration to move forward with implementing IB, if you wanted 2 different languages, French would be one that parents highly favored, along with, they favored 2, but if you wanted 2 different languages, French at McClure, and then we would suggest you, of course, continue with the language that's already at Scott if you wanted 2 different languages. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our administrators to share a little bit about their survey and what they've learned. And we'll start with Dr. Mejia about IB, and then she's just going to talk a little bit, really not focus on PowerPoint, and then we'll turn it over to Dr. Artser. Dr. Mejia.
Good evening, Dr. Anderson, members of the board. We just wanted to share that since the IB topic has been considered, we have reached to Dr. Gomez considering, the fact that whether IB and Gomez would conflict, they won't. There are no, like Dr. Anderson shared, there are no particular curriculum-based areas for IB, and it would not have any impact on our Gomez model. We would have to integrate, the subjects, which is always good practice, and we continue to do that because, our teachers who teach science and Spanish integrate math, and then our teachers who teach math and English integrate science in that manner. So we also learned that there have been Gomez IB schools as well. And so we continue to do that research and doing that outreach to either previous administrators to those schools if they are not retired already, but and also doing an outreach and possibly visiting those schools, in my new role as Director of Cultural Innovation next fall, just working with the Scott team and continuing that professional development through boots on the ground and seeing what it looks like in those schools that implement Gomez and IB. Any questions I might answer for you?
Questions? Mr. Tatum.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hi, Dr. Mejia.
Hello.
When you spoke in front of the board last, which doesn't seem all that long ago, you really kind of, you struck me as really being on the fence as to whether or not the IB program would be a good fit for Scott Magnet. It seems like you've given that a lot of thought. Now it seems like you're of the position. My impression is you're thinking that it might work. There could be a viable strategy to make it work at Scott Magnet as well. Am I reading the tea leaves correctly?
Well, more than being on the fence, it was about gathering more information, becoming more informed, and more educated about how IB and Gomez would marry. So now that this time has gone by and we have gotten more information, I can answer that question about whether there's a conflict or a benefit to marrying the two. And so we have identified that there is actually no conflict necessarily to having IB at Scott. So I'm happy to report that. And anything that will strengthen our scholars and empower them through critical thinking and through global thinking and through furthering their experiences in a global society, through intercultural, multicultural, multilingual, experiences is going to be something that we will always stand for and support.
All right. And it sounds like you're already starting to cast feelers out with some other professionals that have worked with both the IB and the Gomez and Gomez model to kind of see what their experiences and takeaways were from that process?
We are in the beginning stages of making those connections, but it's something that we will take seriously to make sure that we have that information from people who have implemented firsthand to the highest extent possible so that we reach that level of excellence that we expect in everything we do in Topeka Public Schools.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Mrs. Stewart Campbell.
Hola.
Hola.
How do you think, and also for Ms. Gorsuch, your staff? I mean, just all of the, the demands of the Gomez and Gomez model, and you know how amazing we all know Scott is, but how do you think your staff would feel with the extra that IB would bring?
We would have to let them know of all the benefits and how this would not be necessarily one more thing, but how they can build upon each other and how there's already that foundation, and help them see the picture of what they can build upon what's already there. So professional development is going to be a huge piece to support them in understanding what it is and how it already can be melded into what we have, so that it doesn't feel like a new thing. So it would be a matter of information, knowledge and training. You want to add something?
Sure. Good evening, Dr. Anderson and board members. It's exciting to be here and for this possibility and opportunity. So to be honest, teachers are probably gonna be a little scared at first. However, all of the groundwork that Dr. Mejia and myself have done with getting our staff to understand teacher clarity with visible learning, our next steps are basically in line with what we see in the learner profile, those learner dispositions, those characteristics of, being inquirers, being persistent, all of those traits was already a next step we're about to take next year. Furthermore, in the research that I've done, I don't think that this is bad for students or bad for teachers. It's our next step. All of the practices that they show as an IB school are in line with what our next steps were going to be. Also, Ms. Stewart Campbell, as you know, we want to build our program, and this is something that will be another recognition for our students to show that they were at an IB school, and hopefully we draw more staff and more students into our program, which is something that's very important to us as well.
Thank you. So just follow up. So if Scott were to become an IB school, you think it would be even more successful in magnetizing students from outside the attendance area, more native English speakers for that ratio, that balanced ratio?
I would ask the question, would you want your children to go to an IB school? I think I would if I had children. I think that would be a draw. It's another nationally recognized program, another program that has shown that improves student outcomes.
I'm sorry. I didn't catch your name.
I'm so sorry. I'm Ann Gorsuch.
And she is the incoming principal at Scott Dual Language Magnet. Currently the assistant principal. So I want to second that. Absolutely, it will help sustain the program in terms of that magnet status and draw scholars from the west side or from any side of the city who are native English speakers, which, our Spanish families, our Spanish speaking families are naturally drawn, and so are our English natives, but we do need to maintain that flow of, equal balance of the languages, and this will certainly help balance this, that language so that we can continue our Gomez model and our two-way dual language model.
The one question that I have is whether adding this onto Scott's dual language, whether there's a potential to impact dual language and the progress we've already made. That's my biggest worry. I wonder if you might share your thoughts of whether, because we want it, it's already been successful. It's already receiving recognition nationally, which is thanks in large part to a lot of the work that you all have been doing. But my worry is, will it impact the progress we're making in dual language to add this extra layer?
Well, dual language is the backbone of Scott, and that is what Scott has been the foundation of Scott, and something that simply cannot be put on the back burner. It continues to be the driving force of the school, and whatever comes in, should this be a program that is added on to Scott, it would be something that would work in parallel with, in support of, but not in contrast to or in competition or imbalance of dual language. Dual language drives our mission and our vision, and that's not going to change.
I would like to add that you asked if it would have an impact. I think it would positively impact our school, should we decide to move in that direction.
Speak more to that. How do you foresee that?
So I think that it would positively impact it. Like Dr. Anderson said, it would provide our staff with more professional development to develop our learners and those learner dispositions, and to put more ownership into our students, and to help our staff be able to do that, which is our natural next step. And like Dr. Mejia said, and Dr. Gomez also reassured us, there's nothing in contrast between the two programs. In fact, they really complement each other and would help us be able to do what we're already doing even better.
Thank you so much. Ms. Schmidt.
So a couple times you have mentioned that you feel like this is the next step. Is there any reason that we have to have the IB program in order to take this next step?
I am not sure I know the answer to that.
I would like to say that our next step, we have been preparing for and ready to take to transition into the visible learner, not necessarily just the visible learning. So whether there's IB or not, we will continue towards that step. We have set the ground for it and we will continue moving in that direction. So once again, it's not a deciding factor of our next step, but it would help support the vision that we have in moving towards our visible learners becoming that driving force of the school versus the visible learning teacher driving the forces,
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you all very much.
They will remain, as there may be other questions that come up for the two of them. And so with that, for those board members that don't know, visible learning is something we introduced about 4 or 5 years ago. It's an inquiry-based approach. We already have project-based learning that comes in, and you primarily see that at College Prep and TCAL. But all of our schools now have visitors that come through that monitor classrooms, that give feedback on inquiry-based teaching in all of our schools. And that happens on a systemic basis every month. They get feedback. We do walkthroughs based on inquiry-based teaching. We are looking at IB because the board asked administration to look at IB and explore it. So in answer to the question, is it viable? Absolutely it is. Would it complement what we're doing? Yes, it's good professional development, often which is paid for by grant funds anyway. We may well still do the professional development because it gives an added structure beyond visible learning. So in that vein, all schools will still be supported by visible learning and inquiry-based teaching, right? So with that, and the wonderful thing is they require a language. So because they require a language, it automatically complements schools that already have a language. Moving forward to McClure, as Dr. Archer prepares to come up, one of the things in the last board meeting, the question was, what language would they pick? And I didn't know the answer. So I did ask her, what did her parents say they wanted to pick and what was she interested in? Now, again, in that conversation, there was conversation about we should have 2 different languages to magnetize people to one school and to have a different language on another end of town at another school. So if you were to do that, my recommendation would be based on what parents would like to see and what we have at the high school, which we do have Chinese at the high school, but French seemed to be the next language if we were to pick a different language. You may remember that Ms. Wallace shared the new curriculum last year, and she is not here. So when she does return, we will just repeat that, where we expanded our world languages to include Chinese and some other areas. So when she returns, I would not do it justice to talk about the various languages at the high school. But sticking with this piece, McClure, on the west side, the principal immediately said she is interested in International Baccalaureate. She's done her surveys, and then she'll share why she's interested, and then she'll share a little bit about the surveys that she provided. So you may see information that may speak to one language, but on that survey we asked what languages, and we listed like 5 or 6, Chinese being one of them, and then we put an other because people might have said sign language. That would have qualified. And remember, we added sign language last year. So keep that in mind that those all are options, what we choose to do as we start off. If we become an IB, we will be the only school district in the state of Kansas that has an elementary IB, has an elementary. We're already the only one with the K-12 dual language. We will be the only one with elementary IB being offered in Kansas. The only other thing I'll mention on the professional development, as you heard Dr. Sawyer share, we're big on visiting schools and connecting. So in Dr. Bahia's new role, we would visit some of the IB dual language schools and just some of the other IB schools at elementary. So we'll provide that opportunity as we visit schools every year, but this would narrow that focus for those particular schools in particular. All right, with that, I'll ask Dr. Archer to come on up.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Anderson. Good evening, board members. I am excited, one, to be able to speak about what I have learned thus far regarding the IB program. So when Dr. Anderson first shared that with me, I instantly thought yes, because as a principal of my building, I want to always be engaging in opportunities to provide to our students. And knowing that we do have various programming within our district, I know that that's a concern in terms of maybe competing initiatives. However, not all programs are a one size fits all. And so I think this is just another opportunity to continue to put Topeka Public Schools on the map in terms of providing various opportunities for our students. As Ms. Gorsuch just shared momentarily, one of the biggest strengths of the IB program that I noticed through my personal research was the program is really, in my opinion, more of a framework, and the framework's ability to complement what we are already doing and what we continue to strive to do. Specifically speaking to McClure, one, it would complement our character development initiatives, as we saw in that video. One of the biggest framework components is developing students of good character who are global citizens able to go and engage in our world post schools. In addition, what I also really found to be a strength of this framework is the providing of the students the opportunity to own their leadership, which is exactly what we are focusing on here in Topeka Public Schools. In fact, my dissertation was on the implementation of assessment capable visible learning practices. And through my research, what I learned was it is exactly what we need to be doing for students. However, like many things that we implement, the opportunity to provide our staff with that truly robust professional development is often what hinders true full implementation due to budgetary reasons, time. And so what has impressed me with the IB program is the sustainability through the professional development that our staff would receive. Oftentimes, myself, maybe an instructional coach, has the opportunity to receive a really high quality training from various organizations, but that costs money. And so my staff isn't able to experience that high quality professional development through the same lens in which I did. This would be an opportunity for they to all engage in it firsthand together. With that also, I was also impressed that one of the components before even applying is for leaders to engage in professional development through the IB programs to fully understand all components of what that entails before the application is even submitted. So lastly, I'll speak to the foreign language component, which anytime I think any of us are able to learn another language, it just simply adds to the overall experience that both students and staff members and family members would experience here in our schools. And this is one thing that my families have already been asking for from my first month here. I've had several families who have moved maybe from Kansas City and said, hey, my child received this Spanish instruction and it was really a great opportunity for them. Do you have that available here? I said, no, we do not at this time. I also, during a survey I gave earlier this school year regarding our ESSER-funded after-school program, asked, these are some various things in which we could potentially provide to your students. And we just threw out a laundry list of opportunities. And at that time, learning a foreign language was one of the highest ranked options. Unfortunately, we didn't have the capacity at the time to provide through the staffing we have. And so I was really interested to see, what were my parents going to decide when I sent this survey out. And so through the surveys, there were, as you can see, 3 options here. Thank you, sir. Of the respondents, 96% of the families said that they prefer their child to receive Spanish instruction, with French obviously being the second choice. When it came to providing an other option, there were no other foreign languages that were proposed from the families. And then lastly, I will speak to the other survey in which I provided to my staff. And so knowing that I was eager to embark on this journey, I also realized that I have to be able to ensure that my staff is willing to do that as well, because it will take time and it will take dedication, which they are 100% ready to do. But I really wanted to know anonymously, my classified certified staff, what were their true feelings on embarking on this? And nearly over 75% of my staff said absolutely. And for the ones who said that they were a little hesitant through the comments, it was simply because they just didn't know enough to be able to make a decision at that time. It wasn't necessarily that they said, no, we're nervous about this, we don't feel like this is the right step. It was simply, they just needed a little bit more information. And so in all, this has been a great opportunity in terms of learning about the program, and I really am hopeful that it is something that we can bring to McClure just to continue to enhance what we do for our students.
Thank you so much. Questions from Ms. Artser, Dr. Artser, sorry.
You're fine, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Tatum.
Dr. Artser, last time you and I interacted with one another, you were Miss Artser.
I was, yes.
Yeah, so congratulations.
Thank you.
I appreciate the work you've done to kind of prepare your staff and teachers and your parents on this kind of this is the essence of change management. Being able to take something that could be a tough transition and to mold it and shape it so that it's digestible for your targeted audience. So I'm wondering if the reaction to the question of, are you as a McClure community, are you desiring to make this change to IB? Was it predicated on the idea that the language would be Spanish and not any other language? Does that make sense?
Yes, no, it was not.
Okay.
As Dr. Anderson shared earlier, there were several languages listed along with the other option. And simply the question was asked, if the opportunity were to present, which foreign language do you have a preference your student learning? And as you can see from the graph above, it was a resounding 96% in favor of Spanish language.
And that's why I'm asking the question. I'm just curious if folks have somehow decided, okay, we're gonna do this program and we're gonna be doing it with Spanish. I'm wondering if you had a sense that if it were not French was a little sliver, and then there was the 1% other or whatever that was. I'm wondering if you came back to them and said, well, it's going to actually be French, or it's going to be Chinese or Russian, would their feelings about moving into an IB process change?
I understand, and that's a good question. I don't know because I can't speak for them. However, I can speak for the importance of surveying my community, my stakeholders, and getting their true voice. And I think at the end of the day, when I survey those who I serve, I want to follow through in terms of acting upon the voice in which they share. And I think knowing that 96% of the guardians and parents at my building want Spanish, I think if I were to come back and share with them that we went maybe with French, I think that they would have some questions as to the why behind that, simply because they all together collectively shared that we believe learning Spanish, it would be beneficial for our students. One thing I will speak to that I forgot to mention earlier was, once again, through the research thus far, I've learned that this program, while it has a specific framework, there are a lot of components that can be adapted to your specific needs. One being the delivery method in which the foreign language would be provided to the students. And so knowing that, obviously we have Scott Dual Language School, Spanish is 50% of their school day, which is so phenomenal. That would not be necessarily the case at McClure. In fact, it would be more of a true enrichment model in which maybe 1 to 2 times a week, each class would be engaging with the language for maybe 45 minutes. It would not be something in which our students are going to be able to fully speak the language by the end of their program. However, it would expose them to the language in which many of their peers are already speaking or they're hearing in the community, in my opinion, which is going to increase the inclusivity of all of our families and our students, and just provide them the opportunity to at least engage in some standard level dialogue with those who they live with in our community.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Boley.
So McClure is an ELL school, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Or has the support there for our students. So if the language were only put in once or twice a week for the students for 45 minutes, what amount of staff would that take to do that?
I believe it could be done with one individual who would be able to come serve our school in some capacity. Maybe it's someone who works potentially at a middle school or the high school, and they come maybe once a week, just as we job share with our librarian. She works at my building and another building in our district. And so she's there 2.5 days a week. I think it could be easily implemented as a model similar to that.
And so it wouldn't be a situation where it would take staff away from Scott. It would be.
Oh, absolutely. No.
We wouldn't need that type of expertise.
Not at all.
Thank you.
Other questions for Dr. Archer? Yes, Ms. Stewart Campbell.
Thank you so much for this presentation and all the research you did and everything. Okay, so when you surveyed your parents, can you tell us how many responded? Like what percentage are we talking?
Yes, good question. I surveyed the current, incoming 1st through 4th grade families, knowing that the 5th grade families, most of them, if they don't have a child in my building, are outgoing. I did not include them in that survey. And simply because our incoming kindergarten families who are brand new to McClure aren't in our communication platform quite yet, I was unable to survey them. So therefore, of the current population, which would be 1st through 4th grade, that would be approximately 200 students. And so the respondents were in all 60. And so approximately 30% of the population responded. The survey of the 1st through 4th grade.
Okay.
And so, however, the survey link is fully open. And so I will not close it because I continue to want to hear the voices of our community members. And so I will also leave it, the live link in our newsletters moving forward, just to continue to hear not only their preferences, but the comments. Because to me, that's the most telling. Most of them, were very much like, this is a phenomenal opportunity, something my child had previously at a different school or district. And this is, nothing but positives were shared within those comments.
Okay, thank you. So 30% responded of like 200. So we're talking maybe, and math is not my thing either, but fewer than 100, like 70,
60, yeah,
60
60.
answered. So that pie chart we saw was only like 60 some. parents.
Correct. So that pie chart represents approximately 60 respondents. Of that, 96% chose
Wanted
Spanish.
Okay, and thank you. And my next question is, do those parents know that Spanish is offered somewhere else if they want it so badly in the dual language program, which just at our last board meeting, we heard from Drs. Kip and Mejia about how native English speaking students, along with native Spanish speaking students, outperform kids who are schooled in one language. So do those parents know that it even exists and it's a magnet? So that's my other question.
Well, I can't speak for them, but I know through various communications from our district, there are opportunities for them to apply for the magnet schools through the application link. That's often shared through the communications newsletter and online. And so I would hope that those who are truly interested in maybe their child experiencing a program in which they would receive more Spanish instruction, that they have been able to have that answered for them. Those who have reached out to me, I mean, one thing, as you can obviously tell from this evening, is we very much are a family in this district and not competing in any sense. In fact, we just simply want to continue to see each other grow because it affects all of us positively. And so I will share with families who reach out and say, do you have a program in which my child could receive Spanish instruction? No. However, we have various opportunities for them to receive that opportunity at other schools within this district.
Thank you.
Other questions? No? Okay, Dr. Archer, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That concludes our administrator comments. We're going to turn this back over to the, hopefully we answered all of your questions about what do administrators think, what do parents think, and then our recommendation should you choose to proceed forward and ask us to move forward. Having the two schools that are nationally or internationally recognized, I think is another hallmark as we talk about how do we attract people to Kansas and how do we attract people to Topeka Public Schools. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Munoz.
Thank you so much. So yes, Ms. Schmidt.
All right, so I have a question. Did we happen to follow up with Washburn Rule at all about what their attendance has been like with the program since its inception there?
Well, with it being the summer, at this point, we've gotten less information in that regard, but I will ask Ms. Johnson, I think she is here. And so Ms. Nettie Johnson is really our, can you come to the microphone, is our IB representative in the teaching and learning department. And so in terms of asking what their attendance is, we haven't asked, do they attend? However, she received several people that today that shared the success of IB in Washburn Rural, who are willing to make themselves available to share about their success. And so from the feedback we've gotten from IB, that level of activity and engagement at Washburn Rural is effective and solid. But in terms of asking how many students participate in IB or AP for that matter, we didn't ask that specific question. Do you want to add to that at all?
All I really have to add is there is a big support group for IB, and Auburn Washburn principals did reach out. I reached out to try to find someone for a Q&A. And as Dr. Anderson said, it's that time of year. But there is an association, a Midwest Association for IB schools, and she sent out my inquiry, and all of the people that responded were from Auburn Washburn saying, oh my gosh, yes, we would love to help support. Ask us whatever you need to ask us. So I think we easily could ask those questions and find out. And also Dr. Kelty provided some resources on how to help us with the DP program and enrolling students and promoting it and all that it entails.
So my question comes kind of thinking in lines of sustainability as far as the program. In talking to some people that were within the district last time we did some research on this, they went and spoke to Washburn Rural parents, or I can't say exactly who they spoke to, went over to Washburn Rural to ask about the program. And they said initially that there was a lot of interest, but especially at the high school level, as the students found out that they wouldn't be able to participate in sports, wouldn't be able to participate in choir, wouldn't be able to participate in band, that the numbers really started to diminish. And it got to the point where, you know, there was maybe just a handful of them that remained. And so that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. I'm a big believer that we're not a one size fits all, but it's a lot of money. And so then you start to think, if we are implementing, or those are going to be next steps for our schools, even before we introduce the idea of bringing on IB, could we use that money differently to take some of the strengths of the program and implement them in our own way, you know, like we've seen done with the College Prep Academy and TCALC. So that's why I ask. I would be interested to speak to some people over there that are involved.
Yeah, and to that point, two things. One, elementary is IB for all. So which is why we're sharing that there are no IBs in elementary in Kansas. So IB is for all teachers are, because it's about teaching inquiry-based skills. It's not a curriculum or materials. So that is one piece to know. At the high school level, if we were to approach this at the high school, similar to AP, when that was one of the items that my student might have to pick between AP and IB. Which we see that many IB schools also have AP, and much like AP requires a level of commitment. But we have found, I know we just celebrate a student, Najee Candidate, who went to Stanford, took all AP classes, and the softball team that won again in the state. I just had to get that in. To manage all those AP classes, IB would be the same thing, and now my question was, would you have to pick AP or IB, or could IB be in some electives, like, or things that we might not be providing AP classes in? Absolutely. So that was wonderful to hear that IB could be in some of the classes where they aren't able to get AP credit now, so that it doesn't compete. And again, if they're able to participate in all the things with AP, similarly, which, as Dr. Kip shared, the numbers in AP are not, going through the roof. So being able to offer college credit in another way is the way that we look at that. Again, we're most excited about it complements what we're doing. So if we weren't going to go with IB, and you said you rather, thank you for exploring, we don't want to go forward. We're already doing inquiry-based and visible learning across the board. This just adds to the structure. So we likely will still use the professional development through IB in creative ways, especially for schools that really are ready to build on beyond the visible learning work.
Other questions? What's resonating? Yes, Mr. Campbell.
So at our last meeting, I know I said I was in favor of IB at the high school. And I now agree with Mr. Gibson. After spending these past 2 weeks researching, talking to people, and I spoke to a mother of a recent graduate at Washburn Rural who went through the IB program. And this mother just really educated me a lot about the program and how, as far as the college credit goes, or at least this was her understanding, is that her child's only going to get college credit for the HL, there's HL and SL levels, and that he'll only get college credit if he passed the HL, the higher level. And they're not even going to find out until July. And that also that it was just so rigorous, and no time left for anything else, and also numbers declined pretty drastically. Students who stuck with it. So
is there any information on what she's speaking about?
That's the first I've heard of I mean, I know there's the higher learning and then standard learning classes. I think that's what the HL and SL is for. That's the first I've heard where they will only get credit for the higher level classes. But you are correct, they will only get the credit if they get a score of 4 to 7.
which
So-
is that HL, much like AP. You know, at AP, you only get credit if, and I know Dr. Gibson, 5, three or above. And what's the stopping point of the range? in which they can get credit? 4 or 5, where does the range end? So out of 5, you have to be 3 or above, similar to the IB 1 tonight. You know, can they take concurrent credit? Because in AP, you take an AP class and can it be concurrent credit? Dr. Kelty shared that Kansas has a very liberal policy in how we utilize IB. So he would meet with the Washburn staff and how concurrent credit can complement the coursework along with IB, much like we do with AP. Again, we're not necessarily advocating strongly for IB to be at one school or the other. We are just saying we would be prepared and could see how it could benefit should we move forward.
There's been talk about staff development. And I really like the idea of making sure that everyone, not just a few, but that everybody is sort of educated on that. I think that's great. My question is, the funds to be able to make sure that that happens, does that come through some grants that we would apply, or would that come out of our funding, current funding?
So we have ESSER and title funding. We are required to provide staff development already. So with the staff development that we already provide, it is often grant funded, and that would continue. That's how we're addressing visible learning in our current inquiry-based training, sir.
Any idea of a range of cost that this might take? I know it obviously depends on schools and levels, high school versus elementary. Any ideas of what resources it'll take to get this off the ground just financially?
Approximately about $7,000. Am I saying that approximately correct?
The training for the head of schools is $775 each. And so if we were to send 5 head of schools, they call it head of schools, it's our principals. That's that amount. And then the application is $4,000 per building. So roughly.
So the training year would be this year. We cannot apply unless we're registered for training. And we anticipate we'll likely incorporate this training in some way, either way, just because it does complement visible learning. So the training 7,000 and the school site license 4,000 approximately. And again, our current schools have site licenses for a variety of national distinctions that they have and or local distinctions, including being part of AVID, which is at multiple schools. So we generally have licenses for schools in a variety of areas, just to give you some context.
Thanks so much. Yes, Ms. Bully.
So from being in education before, this is very comparable from what it would be if we sent teachers to any other kind of training. It would cost about this much to train our teachers as is. My next question would be, after the training, the initial training and the application fees, what is the cost for us per year?
For the DP, it's 11,500 once you are authorized. Before that, I believe it's 8,500 while you're in the candidacy phase. For the PYP, I want to say it's 9,000. And there's, but also 8,500 until you are authorized. But I believe in our conversations with Dr. Kelty, that could happen within a year. So it wouldn't be multiple years of that 8,500.
So how would that compare with the visible learning or AVID programs?
Get back with you the exact cost at each of the schools, but AVID does cost at each of the sites. We have multiple sites. It's almost at every middle school. It's at several elementary schools, in addition to many other programs. And so this would not be, that is not a significant cost from grant funds compared to what we generally provide. Now, and you should also know the visible learning requires people to fly in every month. It requires ongoing training. at the end of the year. And this is for every administrator. So again, that cost would be comparable to what we spend on professional development, which is a requirement. Keep in mind, we have over a $200 million budget. And so we are required to spend a percentage on staff development. This just gives us a structure from which to spend it in that regard for those two sites in particular.
Thank you.
Other questions? And yes, Ms. Stewart Campbell.
I spoke with a DCAC member who's been involved. His student recently graduated, and this parent was telling me about how DCAC has studied it in the past, and this parent was recommending, and this is how I'm feeling, is that we look at more at concurrent and the CEP, concurrent enrollment program, which I need to learn more about that myself. So I feel I'm not feeling comfortable about like making any decision because I don't fully understand concurrent enrollment. Like I was asking him questions to explain it better. But I hear you saying, Dr. Anderson, that IB could be like if a student was in a high school IB class, it could count for concurrent enrollment.
I can share with you what Dr. Kelty shared with us, which is that, that Kansas has a liberal policy. He shared with us the policy that allows for some level of flexibility in that he would meet with the college, such as Washburn in this case, to look at how we complement concurrent credit enrollment along with IB. I'd recommend that if you either one, don't have IB at the high school and allow for continued exploration. But if you chose a high school, it being Topeka West, I would recommend that we look at some of the classes that don't currently offer concurrent credit or AP, and look at what are some other opportunities to support the rigor in those spaces. I mean, some classes in order to offer concurrent credit, the teacher has to be adjunct faculty for the university in some cases, or we have to have the student going there. So there are all kind of parameters. In this case, each teacher, they wouldn't need to be adjunct faculty. They would be an IB trained person, which then gives them the opportunity to offer IB and to give college credit. So I think, that is a way to complement in addition to exploring the concurrent credit. So you're not having a competition within a school. And I think if there's hesitancy about the high school, you have a new incoming principal. Mr. Buckendorf is new. You may want to, we appreciate the request for us to explore. We've enjoyed the exploration and feel even further affirmed with our visible learning practices that complement this. So that was a great exploration. But if there's hesitancy in putting this off and allowing for further exploration as a new principal, I would recommend that you consider holding off on the high school potentially for it next year and consider the elementary, which would be a different step. We would have the only one in the state. If you wanted IB, and certainly if there's hesitancy, given the cost and the time, I would recommend that if there's not full support, that we reconsider, that we aren't asked to proceed forward. Because any program that you put in place, there has to be tremendous support from the teacher, from the principal. You learned from the board when you were at the Kansas National School Board Association. I mean, every level. So again, appreciate the exploration, but either no IB, but if we were to have it, the elementary certainly seems IB for all, just another way to teach inquiry-based skills at 2 or 1 international or nationally recognized schools.
Ms. Bowie.
I really like that idea. I keep going back to the thought of a statement that Dr. Bonebrake made about 50% of their IB students would end up out of the program because of the rigor of the program. And I really like the idea of preparing our students for the rigor, that maybe our students, once they got to high school, they understand that rigor, appreciate that rigor, and enjoy that type of learning, and it would just build the capacity of our students learning. And I also think of, Scott, magnet school where we're showing data of that rigorous education for our young students, and it's paying off at the high school level for all those students that follow through in that program. So I just think putting this rigor in place for our students with a program that structures it for us where the instruction is the same in all of our buildings that we put it in, instead of just scattered. We're going to try to put this in place. We're going to try to put this in place. We have a program that has been researched and has success. I just really like the idea of building that rigor for our students when they're young. And when they get to the high school level, possibly we wouldn't have that same type of dropout. They know what they're getting into with that choice.
You may remember for Scott, they didn't open elementary, middle, and high at the same time. In fact, places that did that didn't succeed. You know, here in Topeka Public Schools, you all opened, you know, at the elementary first, built onto that, then the middle, then the high. So if we were to follow that same model, right now we don't have any middle schools that feel ready next year. You know, perhaps the baby step is the elementary if you ask us to proceed. So, Mr. Munoz, that's our question. What direction would you like to give in terms of IB for elementary and IB for high school?
Thanks so much. So I'm looking for you all to sort of get a sense of where we stand. I think it's, yes, Mr. Campbell.
I think we're having two conversations. We're definitely having two conversations, IB high school, IB elementary. All right, so at this point, I do not support IB at the high school for the reasons that our NEAT president gave, for just conversations I've had with people in the community, some emails we've gotten quite a few emails from that people who read the article that Mr. Garcia put in the Capital Journal. And I'm going to take the recommendation from the DCAC parent that we get an updated study of what IB could do for high school compared to a concurrent enrollment program, compared to AP. What can we do? I mean, is this money that we could be spending to increase more students enrolling at Washburn Tech, or, you know, doing more for CTE, doing more at TCalc? So anyway, at this point, I'm not in favor of IB at high school, and elementary is a different conversation.
And so for my clarity, the study, if administration were recommending about proceeding with IB, I will share that right now, coming out of the pandemic, it is another step at the high school level in particular that requires not only training, but an added effort. So if we hold off on IB at the high school, I think investing in a study for the staff would be a challenge to do for this upcoming year, whether we're in fully a pandemic or not. But if the board wants us to study the topic for high school, we will create a committee and do that. You know, if the board is willing to delay, especially since Topeka High is not interested, we have a new principal at Topeka West. You know, if the board is willing, allowing for the new principal to get acclimated at Topeka West, and then maybe a year or two from now, have the conversation. If the board could give us some grace and time in starting a study or committee or asking any of these schools to do that, we would appreciate it.
You're talking about just about high school, IB.
Request is to study it and look at concurrent credit and these other pieces. Just since Topeka West was the only school interested, I think for a new principal that might create a challenge next year to absorb that. And right now we are fully on board with delaying implementing IB and certainly at the high school level, should the board allow us grace in not moving forward. So thank you, Ms. Stewart-Campbell, in that comment as well.
Let's stay on this, the issue of the high school IB, just to sort of make sure. Where do you all fall on the issue of this? What's resonated most for you, maybe?
I appreciate the idea of setting the high school aside for a bit I think building it up like we did Scott is a really good idea, because then we're building in the rigor for our students to accept that at a high school level. I think scheduling would be a piece at the high school level that could maybe allow our students to do more in the extracurricular activities. I think that piece can be overcome. I don't think all IB students just can't do the sports. It's just that the program is rigorous, and so the time feels crunched. So I believe that this stepping up too would be something that'd be very powerful for our students in elementary. You know, we have heard complaints across the nation. All our schools do is teach to the test. This would take us out of that category. We would create thinkers, we would create problem solvers with this type of program, this type of PD for our student, professional development for our teachers, who would move us further along in addressing all the needs of our students. I feel strongly that we start it in the elementary area if our teachers are on board for that.
What about on high school? What do you?
I was wondering, you said something about the PD would be for all teachers in the district. Would that be true even if they were not?
If they were not IB schools. And we'll explore that. I think we can send anyone to training. I would be interested in IB school people coming to Topeka Public Schools and also providing that, which is a more cost-effective way of providing train the trainer types of stuff. But all teachers at the elementary are required to be trained. At the high school, just the IB teachers are required if you were to select that. As we continue with visible learning and look at and explore staff development that IB offers that complements what we're doing, we'll be exploring how can we provide levels of training, whether it's through the official IB or whether it's through other instructors on inquiry-based learning. And we already provide the project-based learning training. We already pay to have them come in, and we already do that.
And that's at the high school level as well.
For project-based learning, yes. Now, we also provide systemically project-based learning training across the district, but particularly at the high school level at TCAL.
So I really do believe that we need to hold off on the high school level. If that was the question you were asking me, Mr.
Yeah, I'm getting
President.
a sense of where are we specifically on high school. So, and then we can delve into elementary, but Ms. Schmidt, Mr. Tatum, Dr. Schumacher.
Mr. President, I would agree with the comments made so far about the high school level. I think to Dr. Anderson's point, giving the incoming Topeka West principal time to acclimate to the environment and to kind of get a lay of the land and come back to revisit this issue of IB at the high school level is something that we can entertain in a year or two. If there's no reason to rush into it now, then I think there's time to study. I think Dr. Anderson did make a comment about gathering a committee to study which topics would make the most sense to pair with IB at the high school level. I think that's probably the way to go.
All right, Dr. Schumacher, Ms. Schmidt.
Yeah, I looking at the economics of it and the investment at the high school level versus the PYP program and being able to affect all students at the schools that you would pick for PYP and potentially not affecting very many students at the high school level, I think economically, and I think given the other offerings that we have at the high school level and some of the changes at the high school level, I think I would agree with holding off for now.
Ms. Schmidt.
I agree.
I agree as well. I think it's fairly complicated, and I don't think we necessarily have our brain wrapped around all that goes into this, at least at the high school level. So I mean, we could follow up on this again and During that meantime, though, I think, learning, having a group that's able to sort of make sure they understand it, and that we as well understand that what entails taking it to the high school level.
And second semester, as we do this, I would love for students to be involved and, at Topeka West, who, to research it and do that. So second semester of next year, possibly, if we have a committee for next year. The next question, Mr. Munoz, is, and if I could address the schools differently, because you might feel different about each of the schools. Scott, being the first school, would you like for us to explore and allow IB to be explored and for the training to start for Scott?
Board, I voiced it earlier, my biggest concern is whether it was going to impact dual language. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work for staff. And so from what I'm hearing from Ms. Gorsuch, that it complements fairly well, but I don't know, I'm on the fence. How do you guys feel?
I would say I would agree with moving forward with Scott.
Okay, so for me with Scott, in our strategic plan, we specifically stated that we would increase the number of students who are enrolled in the high school dual language program to 100 students entering high school starting in 2021. And Dr. Kip Losiento, I didn't ask you for this, but anecdotally, I don't believe we met this goal since my son is a freshman in 2021. You've heard me talk about the few native English speakers left. So under strategy, we state to secure the necessary resources to allow for these opportunities, including PD and instructional resources. So this is part of the strategic plan for dual language. And as I stated at our last meeting, if offering Spanish as the language choice at an IB elementary school will prevent more native English speakers from going to Scott Elementary, weakening the program, this would be in direct conflict with our stated strategy of to secure the necessary resources. The most important resource for a successful dual language program is native English speakers going to Scott, learning alongside native Spanish speakers. So I could definitely be on board with IB at Scott, thinking it's going to, because I think one of our biggest challenges with Scott is people don't know about it. They still don't know about it. And I know you're probably tired of hearing me talk about it, but just what can we do to promote it even more? And this could be a way, if Scott were an IB elementary school, this could be a way to get the word out more to attract even more native English speakers.
Rest of our board,
yeah, I think everything that I've heard as far as the inquiry-based system, visible learning, and kind of those support for the next steps, I think that was really, I think this makes sense. I think that continuing to support kids that are going to be great learners and that are going to be inquisitive and that are going to have a global mind view. And, as Ms. Stewart Campbell alluded to, and they had talked about, this could be another way to continue to strengthen Scott from a dual language standpoint, to continue to recruit and retain students. So I'm in favor with it.
Mr. Tatum.
I would agree. I think that for me, having heard what Dr. Mejia spoke about with the inclusion of the IB program with the curriculum that's already established at Scott, fills me with confidence. It makes me feel confident that this is something that is feasible and has a reasonable chance of being successful. So with that in mind, I would support moving forward with IB at Scott Magnet.
Ms. Schmidt?
All right, so the competitive part of me likes the idea of it. The empathetic part of me who has listened to administrators talk about teachers have had the worst year ever. Kids have behaved like they never have seen before. Mental health is plummeting. I go, is this the best time to implement this next year on top of everything else? So that is my struggle. That is where I'm at. I'm kind of on the fence. I like the idea of it. I just don't know if this is the right time.
I agree. What we haven't seen is any data as far as support from staff at Scott. Am I wrong? We saw some numbers from Claire, but not from Scott. So I don't know where, any sense that you all can give us in terms of staff?
We, at McClure, we really looked at language. And because they don't currently have a language at all, we asked staff, do they even want to entertain this model that would then require a language? Since Scott already had a language, they're already doing inquiry-based teaching. And it was the last week of school, I think, when the board asked us to begin to explore this. We didn't add another survey onto the mini surveys they had during that time. Unless, am I correct in that? Okay. So the conversation is more anecdotal with, and I think Dr. Ms. Gorsuch's comment that anytime you share systemically, here's what we're doing systemically, you know, there's a question about what does this look like? In this case, it doesn't provide, you know, doesn't add new curriculum or more materials. It's just when we're looking at visible learning, here's some added training and how we implement visible learning and, you know, reference it as IB and strengthen what we're doing in that space. So that's the difference in this piece. And her packaging of that to staff will be done in such a way that shows this is still what we're already doing. We get a chance to get kind of a national, should we, you know, go through this process, we get a chance to just get another national piece. We have the Magna, we've been recognized by the Embassy of Spain. This adds that other piece. So we did not add another survey the last 4 days of school, I think is what we have left.
And that's understandable. I just want to make sure that I understand it correctly. The other thing we should be mindful of as well is Ms. Gorsuch is going to be in her first year at Scott. It's an amazing school. She's been there for, and I've seen her day in and day out when I drop off my kids. So she's hard at work, but it's a new position for her as well. And I would say, I think I agree more closer to Ms. Schmidt that COVID has been incredibly, you know, difficult. And when I ask myself, of all the things that we should be doing or we could do, where should our focus be? For me, looking at and studying and understanding the effects of COVID on our students and asking ourselves, what way can we best help them? I think is foremost on my mind. That's what's resonating for me. Ms. Gorsuch, did you have something to add?
Ask Ms. Gorsuch to come up, being that she's in her first year as principal, and we're excited. Just another plug. We just hired the Kansas Teacher of the Year tonight. You approved them tonight, so that Kansas Teacher of the Year is joining our district and will be the new assistant principal at Scott Dual Language. So we're excited about that. With that, Ms. Gorsuch, who's been at Scott for some time, but is in her first year as principal, I guess, can you speak to the level of challenge to be able to incorporate IB as a new principal? Can you speak to that? Dr. Mejia in her new role will be the mentor for Scott Dual Language, of course, because her new role of Cultural Innovation Director. But can you speak to that first year? And is this a piece that's an added taxing piece for you?
Yes, but I will get it. There we go. Okay. So I am up for the task, but I would like to get a little bit of feedback from my staff about what kinds of supports and how they're feeling about it. I really appreciate, Ms. Schmidt, your cognizant of where we're at right now and with recovering from the pandemic. We've done a lot of amazing things at our school, and our staff is fantastic and our students are resilient. And we, I'm not sure how closely you look at the data, but we have moved a lot of our students out of the beginning level into developing level, and we are making gains every single year. And we're super proud of our staff for doing that. I see this as an opportunity to give more supports to our staff, to do what we're doing already even better, like I mentioned before. So the question of, am I up for it as a new principal? Of course. But I'm not going to do it alone. My staff and what they think is very important to me. But I do think that the way we package it and also the opportunities it will bring to grow our program can't be ignored.
One thing that you might want to be thinking about if you approve Scott and you want us to move forward is that the approval comes with the majority of staff in support and feeling that they're ready to take that next step. Because the very first step is the principal being trained, which would happen in October. So, it takes the full year of the training, which the training is good for the principal no matter what, because it complements what we're doing. So if you choose to approve to move forward with Scott, based on when the majority of staff is in support, that would be one item, or not approving or asking us to move forward at all, which again, we are completely comfortable with.
Thank you. So where do we stand right now as far as Scott? Do we need? Ms. Whiteman, help us out here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'm waiting for a motion. Before I do that, I just want to sort of share my thought. I think this fits well with Scott. I don't think this is the year to do it. And my personal preference would be to wait a year for Ms. Gorsuch to get her sort of grounded, and certainly next year move forward on this. So with that said, do you have something you also want to add?
It's just amazing how quickly minds can change when you listen to other people who are in the know and who you respect. I think that's a good idea. And I think we could spend this next year instead promoting Scott more, educating parents about what Scott is. I'm having ideas like brochures in pediatricians' offices. Where do young parents go? Right? Brochures and
I have enough of those.
Oh, you need more. Do you have any for the TPS's dual language program? Oh, okay. The Discovery Center, the zoo, community centers, the WIC offices. Anyway, so I think I agree. Let's wait a year and let's promote dual language more and then revisit it.
Ms. Whiteman, did you say that we need an official, or if we're just
based on the consensus, it seems like delaying and for this year allowing us to continue to promote and explore, and then a year from now to come back. Does that sound like?
I think that sounds where most of us are. Yeah.
Right. So the next school where Ms. Archer has, Dr. Archer has been, would you like for us to move forward with dual language? I'm sorry. Oh, that's a hot button, I'm telling you. So would you like for us to move forward with McClure? And if so, what language would you like for us to move forward with?
Well, McClure, what are your thoughts? Mr. Tatum.
All right, I'll be the one to wade into the conversation on this one. Based on, based on the constituent feedback that we have gotten, I am not in favor of moving forward with the IB program with McClure, simply because it sure sounds to me, it gives me the impression that the language that the teachers at McClure are gearing up for is Spanish. we already have a school, an elementary school that is specializing in teaching Spanish. Well, we've got two. We've got Scott Magnan and we've also got Whitson. So based upon that, I'm not, and I know we mulled over this 2 weeks ago. I've given it more thought. I'm not sure that we want a third site for Spanish. If there was a resounding desire from the professionals at McClure that another language might be feasible, French came in a second, but a very, very distant second. And there are other languages that could be viable, but there really doesn't seem to be a will to do that. What I'm hesitant about doing is saying, okay, McClure, you guys are going to teach the IB program, but we've decided it's going to be French. And then, you know, the reaction may be, well, yeah, but we really didn't want French. We wanted Spanish. So I mean, from a business management perspective, this is to me about diversifying our assets. And when we have two assets in the district that specialize in Spanish at the elementary level. If we're going to go with a language, I think it should be one other than Spanish for a third language site. So at this point, that doesn't really seem to be what's desired. So I think that at this point, I would not like us to move forward with the IB program at McClure.
Others, thoughts? Dr. Schumacher.
Yeah, I think this one's the hard one. I agree that Scott does amazing things. I think that's evidence by what it does every day. But I do also know that, you know, we talked about it before, not all programs are one size fits all. And not all schools are a one size fits all. And some parents just want a really, really good neighborhood school. And that's what works for them. And so Scott is a great bilingual, biliterate program, or the start to that. But for some parents, that's not right for them. So I think it's dangerous to think in that one size fits all. But that being said, I think it was in the 5 months I've been on the board, I think it was masks. And then this IB program is what I've gotten the most emails about. And I hear that and I appreciate that. And I think now, like Mr. Tatum said, if there was support at McClure for a language that wasn't Spanish, I would feel more comfortable saying yes to it. Knowing that I am there with those parents that want to send my kid to a good neighborhood school. And would I have, if my kids were at Meadows and they had the opportunity to learn Spanish, I would love that. And so I see those parents and I respect those parents' opinion, but I think right now is not the right time.
Thank you. Others?
All right, so we all got a letter from Patrick Woods. And for those who don't know, he was one of the visionaries of our dual language program. And I just want to read a few sentences in the letter because I think it's really important. He wrote, it's important for the board to be cognizant of its responsibility to maintain and protect the curricular draw of the two magnet schools, which are key conditions of the 1995 unitary status settlement reached with the courts in the second Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka proceeding. The legal requirements for this agreement remain in place, and any actions that the board takes could lead to significant changes in the distribution of enrollment would need to be examined through that lens, with the unitary status settlement as the backdrop. So again, back to McClure offering Spanish, that could affect this, with parents choosing to enroll their kids at McClure because of Spanish. They're going to see IB Spanish and think that's where I want my child. And it's going to take away those Native English speaking kids from Scott. So I think we really have to be cognizant of that and heed Mr. Wood's words in his letter to us. Now, like what Mr. Schumacher, Mr. Tatum said, if McClure, another language, I'd be all on board, but not Spanish. Thank you.
Ms. Schmidt, Ms. Bowley.
I just see the language piece for the IB program as such a small piece of the educational foundation that it would bring into our buildings. As both of our principals have stated to us, it is the next step that they feel that is going to empower their students and their building, their teachers, and that we are hanging so much on just that small piece of this program that's the language. And who's not to say that they get that small bit of Spanish at McClure and say, I want my child to have much more. I want them to go to Scott Magnet School. I do agree that our district needs to expand the language program. I would love if the parents wanted French at that school. I was actually hoping that would happen because that's the hang up for this program. But the rigor that it brings into the classrooms and the teachers the research I've done, teachers are excited about their teaching of their students. The problem solving and the student-led education piece of it, the world education piece of it, all of that is so powerful. I hate to see it all thrown into a bathtub because of 45 minutes of Spanish a week. I just really hate the idea of taking so much away from one school because we're so concerned about another school. When we can do something about that other school, we can build more capacity there by getting the word out better, by exploring ways to help parents understand what Scott Dual Language is going to do for their students without throwing everything else out for every other student in our district. And so I have real concerns about teaching 45 minutes a week of Spanish to throw the whole program out. That's where I am.
So is that a yes or no in support of McClure?
I would like to push our education forward for all our students. So I guess I'm a yes on McClure.
Ms. Schmidt.
So what I've heard from conversation is that these were next steps that our administrators at these schools see the schools taking regardless of if we have IB in place or not. So I don't think we have to have certain initials to move our district forward a certain direction. I still lean on the fact of the learning loss that has been experienced the last 2 years. Our kids in 3rd grade were learning from home, K and 1, and this was their first year in school. And I think we have to quit looking at it as yes or no, but maybe just not right now. And that's kind of where I land. I think it has a lot of good things to offer. I feel like we have a lot more immediate needs that we just may be scratching the surface of, that we probably need to look at a little bit more in depth, or just get another year of students being back in facilities with teachers, getting discipline and all those things under control, and giving us an opportunity to do further investigation for ourselves on IB and what it is and what it brings. Maybe give the administration an opportunity to have more conversations with parents, seeing if there is a different language, if that's a pain point for some. So I'm not saying no forever. I'm just saying, I don't think right now. Again, I've heard so many teachers talk about what a difficult year it was, and that I don't know, not that I'm not denying they are all have superpowers and can probably do anything. I would not want to deal with those children, but they did. But I just wonder, is this the best time to add that on top of everything? So I'm not in support right now.
And I think to reiterate, I think in 1 year, my hope would be this, that for McClure, either one, I learn a little bit more about the impact and realize that offering Spanish here isn't the concern that I thought it was, or two, that organically McClure comes to an agreement, both staff and families, about an alternative that they're okay with, one of those two things. But for me, I think I would be a yes for this program in a year, which would give us enough time to be able to figure that out and make sure that we're ready for when we do move forward. So it seems like, Dr. Anderson, that there's a consensus, same as Scott, that this is a great program. And maybe if we could visit this in a year, we might be in a better position to make sure it moves forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if Dr. Artzer with McClure, if it's possible to say to parents, there's already Spanish in 2 other schools. Let's talk about other languages. Like, can she do this?
As a next step, based on the consensus that you just shared, we will inform individuals when they return that we explored this. The board asked us to explore this. We did, and the board asked to come back in a year. However, if there were other languages, would they still want to pursue an IB under the terms of another language? And we would put the languages back out there. That'll let you know if families want to proceed or not over the course of a year from now. I think it's helpful for Dr. Artzer to have the training either way, just because McClure outperformed the state. Want to get that plug in, and some of the highest increases. So she is one of the top 4 highest performing schools in Topeka Public Schools based on preliminary data. So I think a next step beyond where we are seems logical. So if she can certainly ask the question, and I think framing it in August, that if given we have Spanish at these other schools and here's the specialty school, would you want to pursue IB if it were one of these other languages? And if so, which pick a language? And then we'll bring that back over the course of next year sometime based on the direction you've just given.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson. Moving on to the next item on potential action is the adoption of resolution 20-011, authorizing the issuance of 2020 bonds as tax exempt obligations. We have a motion. Yeah. Action number 2. Okay, sorry. Ms. Lester just running. There's a discussion item. Is there anyone who could just give us a quick update on this? Just make sure that we all understand this particular issue. Shemenki.
Evening. I'm guessing at this point, you don't want to see a 20-page PowerPoint on bond refinancings and present value calculations. Is Mr. Gowns ready to bring that up, or let me do this. Let's just look at this one slide, and based on some of the other data I've put, we'll see if we can make sense of this. So here's just a snapshot of some bond refinancings, that historic bond refinancings for the district. I just really want to focus on the Series 2017 and the Series 2020, because those are the refinancings of our large 2014 bond issue where the district issued authorized issuing $143 million in bonds. And we did lots of things with that. The 2017 issue refinanced about $9 million of the first $110 million that we issued. And then in 2020, again, historic low interest rates during this time, and we refinanced just a bulk of that 110 million from 2014. Prior to it refinancing in 2020, even the Series 2017 bonds, it was allowable to refinance general obligation bonds with tax exempt bonds. In 2017, there was some changes with the Tax Cut Jobs Act, and it did away with the ability to refinance the GO bonds with non-taxable issue. So the bond market responded to that. It took them about a year to figure out this, what was called a conversion or a Cinderella financing, where you could, if it made sense, and it did in this, as you can see, that refinancing of the 94 million will over the life shorten the payback period 5 years, and it saved the district about $20 million on that 2014A issue. But the bonds were initially issued at a taxable rate with a predetermined date set where the district agreed to reissue those bonds to the same bondholder, Capital One. You see, we're not switching who's holding our bonds. It just goes, now we can legally finish the process. So this resolution tonight, we're just here asking the board to initiate this conversion process, plain and simple. After this resolution is done, the rest of the work will be done at Mr. Wolf's office here in town, our bond counsel, and at Raymond James, our financing experts.
Any questions for Mr. Minke on this? All right. Ms. Bowie.
This is a really good move, correct?
Yeah, I would say we need to consummate the saving of $20 million and shorten that up. Yeah, I think this is a really good move. Absolutely.
Thanks for making this vote easy.
Yeah, well, we've got a great partner in Raymond James. I got to tell you, and Greg Barnberg, who has worked with the district for many, many years on its bond financing. Very good to work with. An eye out on that market for us, because it is a highly specialized market. It takes a lot of expertise to do these kind of things. And so by no means think that I've engineered all of this. There's a lot of smarter people, and there's a lot of smarter people than I am that have helped us along the way here.
Any other questions? No, if not, I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. President, I move the board adopt resolution 22-011, authorizing the reissuance of 2020A bonds as tax exempt obligations.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. Is there a second? Mrs. Schmidt. All right. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to the vote. Ms. Lister. Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda is board member comments / committee reports. We'll start with you, Dr. Schumacher.
Yeah, so we had technology committee, their fearless leader. We talked about online registration, some of the forms coming out on July 4th. July 1st, we talked about hard drive issues with Google Drive, I guess not hard drive. It's that virtual drive. The cloud always gets us, and the limits, and just the good work that's gone into getting some of those numbers down so that not everything is lost after. That's July 1st as well. Yeah. And then something that we approved tonight, the boardroom audio. So hopefully my wife, who's potentially still watching at home, can hear me, and everybody else. So that was technology committee. And I just want to say, so today was kind of an emotional day for me. It's been a long evening, but I was able to attend the celebration of life for a student that was passed away in the last week and a half. For Vincent, he was known as Tony DeGennaro Jr. And he's a kid that I've known for a long time and is very special to me. And there was a word that was said a lot tonight that resonated with me, that family. And I think it's something that I talked with Dr. Anderson about when she learned that there was a relationship between Tony and myself after his passing. And I told her that the TPS family, it's just truly amazing. And it showed itself today at the service, and the support from the staff whose life Tony had touched was amazing. And it was really special to me. And so I think it just deserved a call out tonight.
Thank you so much. Mr. Tatum.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, let me say, Dr. Schumacher, my condolences in your loss, and to anyone else impacted in the TPS family. This is it's tough. The only thing that I think I wanted to just mention was a quick shout out to our professionals that are gearing up for the summer set. I can't remember what the name of it is. Yes, thank you. The summer enrichment camps. I know my 3 youngest children will be participating in those. I've already gotten a bunch of emails from the teachers who are just getting all the parents geared up and ready for what's to come over the course of the next several weeks. It sounds really exciting. I am absolutely excited for what they're going to learn. Not just my kids, but all the kids who will be a part of this. So yeah, definitely wanted to give a shout out to all the teachers and other professionals that are involved in making this come together.
Mrs. Schmidt.
So I did notice the technology stuff when I was reviewing the agenda things. And as somebody who's gotten multiple comments from multiple people that are enjoying the ability to be able to sit home and partake in our board meetings, they will much appreciate being able to hear. They're like, go watch this, you can't hear. So it's exciting to be able to tell them each week, you know, we acknowledge it, we're addressing it. So I want to thank Dr. Anderson and everybody that you engaged in appeasing us in asking that you do more research and bring us more information on the IB program. I do think it's a really good opportunity. Like I said before, I just don't know. It's like my mom always used to tell me, not right now. And then I just want to thank all our teachers and all our custodians and school professionals, and hope that they had a good end of the school year and that they recharge and just pour into themselves, right? Because you got to be full in order to pour into other people. And that's what they do, is they pour into our kids and our families all year long. So I hope they are able to take some time this summer to really just give themselves some grace and spoil themselves a little.
Mrs. Stewart Campbell.
Like to Peak High girls won state again, back to back. Woo, best in state. That's very, very exciting. Let's see. I really don't have much to say. You've heard a lot from me tonight. Policy committee, we met. I'd like to publicly acknowledge Miss Whiteman is amazing. We are very, very lucky to have her. So thank you. I called her today about some stuff and just very concise answers. I understand you. You're not over my head. Thank you. Anyway, so in policy committee, we mainly talked about the policy over bullying and looked at all the language for bullying. And then we also talked about the question that Dr. Bonebrake brought up at the last meeting, which I'm not going to talk about because I'll wait till he's here. That makes more sense. And yeah, just thank you for all this IB talk, for your grace, listening, exploring more. And thank you also to my colleagues, where this is what diplomacy is about. We don't see exactly the same thing, and we listen and we learn from each other. My mind's changed quite a few times in the past few weeks. Even just sitting here tonight, my mind changed about something. So this is what it's all about, isn't it? Being an elected leader. So thank you to the board, and I'll see you all Saturday.
Mrs. Bowie.
I enjoyed the rigorous talk tonight. It was enlightening and I enjoyed it a lot. I want to say that KSBA contacted me to ask if I would be a new board member for them on their legislative committee for this region. And I talked to our district and I accepted that position. So I'll be on that board come September. Yeah, thank you. I didn't expect that applause. I want to ditto what Ms. Campbell said about, Stuart Campbell said about Ms. Whiteman. She has been very, very informative in helping us trudge through that policy manual, which is about this thick. And she's doing an excellent job. Besides our Topeka High girls at Highland Park High School, Mr. Richardson got a 5A gold in the 200 meter and other medals as well. And Miss Reed got in 5A from Highland Park. I believe she's from Highland Park. She made her, I don't have that down. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Miss Reed. She has a 5A gold medal in the 400 dash. And many of our other students competed and brought home medals. And we are just so proud of them and really appreciate the opportunity for our students to compete at such a high level. And what a privilege for all our students to go and find out what it's like to be at that professional, strong level. Congratulations to Topeka High. I think they finally finished up their 150th anniversary celebration. And they had to postpone it and wait, and they've been so patient. And the laser show was quite fantastic. I wasn't there, but I watched it on video and it was wow. I was gonna say, if I was there, I'm sure it was even better. I wanted to also piggyback on Dr. Schumacher's point. I wanted to reach out and compliment the staff at Jardine. They have had quite a difficult year and they've handled it with grace and sadness, and the way they've wrapped around all their families, and the way TPS has wrapped around them during this difficult year. They've been quite fantastic, and so I wanted to recognize them. And also the Topeka Public School Foundation has their online auction open. They're raising money for our classrooms for teachers to do special projects. So if you just happen to have a little extra cash in your wallet, open up that website and pile it in.
Thank you. Let's see. Tough thing about going last is that you all talk about so many things on my list that I'm marking off. What wasn't mentioned though was, yes, besides our THS softball team, besides Highland Park, our track and field, Eisenhower Middle School and the girls soccer team won the city tournament. So congratulations to them. Let's take a look here. A couple of things for parents. I don't know what happens to our kids during summer, but they get hungrier. like all the time. So just as an FYI, for any parent who doesn't already know, that there are summer lunches available at many of our schools, and you can find that on our Facebook page. So if you're finding yourself with hungry kids like I do, and like many of you parents do, know that that's a resource, and encourage you to use that and help you keep our kids healthy and get them back in a good shape come fall. Second, besides being hungry, they're also looking for things to do. So if you haven't already, obviously there we have a summer enrichment program and programs through 501, but there's also an app that's called Sunflower Summer, which allows you to have free access to many parks and places that normally there'll be a cost associated to. So if you have that, look on your, download that app, Sunflower Summer, and allow you lots of opportunities to engage your kids in ways that I think would be helpful when they come back to school. For board members, if you haven't already, fill out your self-evaluation. You have a digital, but if you haven't done it yet, in order to have that ready for Saturday at our retreat. And I think that's all. I enjoyed today's conversation. It's a great program, IB, and looks like going forward, we may be exploring this in a very real way. And I think it'll only pay dividends for our students.
Mr. Munoz, can we take just 10 seconds of silence with Tony today, but also with all of the individuals that have been impacted by school shootings as well in particular? Just the 10 seconds. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson, for pointing that out. Okay. Yes, Mr. Tatum.
Just wanted to clarify on the retreat on Saturday. I meant to bring it up and you did just here a bit, but just wanted to make sure of the details of the place, the time, et cetera.
You should have had that, Dr. Anderson, if you could send that out to everybody here, just as a reminder. It's going to be at
it's at Bishop Professional Development Center, 8 to 10. But I'll send that back on out so that you have that and attach the agenda. Is really just 2 items. I think Mrs. Lister has the agenda that she sent out. So I'll just reattach that or either have Ms. Lister do that. Thank you so much for mentioning that. But Bishop, 8 o'clock on Saturday.
Okay.
And we have breakfast.
Oh, great. Even better. Thank you.
If there's nothing else, then we'll go ahead and adjourn.